Joining me now is April Ryan, the Washington Bureau Chief and White House Correspondent for the Grio. She's also an analyst on CNN. She's the author of a new book, Black Women Will Save the World in Anthem. You should know that April's the longest-serving Black female correspondent in history in the White House, and sometimes the only one. This is her fourth book, plenty of material. April has been covering the White House since January 13th, 1997. Welcome to Chicago.
Thanks for having me.
Welcome to the Navy Pier offices.
I can't be in Chicago without coming to see you because you are in the White House press corps, our queen of Chicago.
Well, thank you. Well, thank you. And congratulations on your latest book.
Thank you.
So you have said that Black women are in a moment. You talk about the new Supreme Court Justice, Jackson, Vice President Harris, the White House Press Secretary, Karen Perine. So when you say that Black women are in the moment, I also want to point out where we are in Chicago, where there is Lori Lightfoot.
Lori Lightfoot, and she's in the book.
And she's in the book, and we're going to talk about it.
Yes.
We have Lieutenant Governor Juliana Stratton. We have Cook County Board President Tony Preckwinkle. We have Cook County State's Attorney Kim Foxx. We have had Carol Moseley Braun, Black female senator.
U.S. Senator, yes.
We are talking in a place that has spawned some of the biggest Black female leaders in the nation, most of whom now are serving in office real time. But your book, in a sense, takes a historical look, because you do say, as a profession, we've made progress, but as you also write, we're in a moment. Tell me where we are in that moment.
Well, first of all, Chicago weighs heavy for me in this book. And when I say weighs heavy for me, because I've received so much from some of the women that you've spoken of. And they recognize this moment. And when you name some people, let's even go further. Susan Rice, Domestic Policy Advisor, Shalonda Young, Head of OMB Office of Management and Budget, Marcia Fudge, HUD Secretary, and the list goes on. But and Keisha Lance Bottoms, who is in charge of public engagement at the White House. She saved Joe Biden right after that. Who
it has the job that Valerie Jarrett had under Barack
Obama. Yes. Valerie Jarrett, who's from Chicago and still very much on the world stage, okay, as a Black woman and as a woman who shows up to change the world and focuses on young girls and women as well. But when it comes to this moment, if we don't mark the historic moment, it just goes by the wayside and we may not see gains again and we may not be able to build on it. I'm speaking to you as a Black woman who shows up as a Black woman in spaces and places versus being a journalist. My journalistic hat says, wow, okay, this is something to write about. But as a Black woman, I'm like, this is a moment that my ancestors never thought would happen, okay? Shirley Chisholm said, being Black and a woman is a double whammy. She also said, if you don't have a seat at the table, bring a folding chair. These women are building the table and convening the table now. And then when it comes to, I have two stories. Kim Foxx, we were already in print by the time that happened. I met Kim Foxx at Essence this year, the Essence Festival. And it was so interesting. I met her with other Black DA women, female DA, Black female DA, DAs, I guess you would say, across the nation, from Georgia, Florida, Alabama. And Cori Bush was in that group. And we all huddled because there's been a strain on us being attacked, them attacked on different issues, be it voting, what have you. Cori Bush being attacked for her activism. The world saw why I was attacked. And some of those women, some of the DAs felt like they were going to bust, particularly the one from Georgia. And you could see the pain on their face. And that sisterhood of being in rarefied air is important. And Lori Lightfoot talked about that as well in the book. The mayor of Chicago, there's a gathering Black mayors.
Let me set that up, because you have some interesting passages where Mayor Lightfoot talks to you about her sister mayors. And you can only have sister mayors. It's a reference to Black females who are running major cities, because now we're in a time, we're talking in 2022, when it's not one, it's not two, there's a mass. So you quote, the mayor of San Francisco, London Breed, the mayor of D.C., Muriel Bowser, the former mayor of Atlanta, Keisha Lance Bottoms, and the New Orleans mayor, LaTanya Cantrell. So these are what our Chicago mayor Lightfoot calls sister mayors. And Lightfoot, and you quote her in the book where you say, this is Lightfoot now, everybody, being a Black woman who has the audacity to aspire to leadership, we're always going to be judged by a different set of standards on it. And so could you tell us, you talk about in your book how she, in a sense, uses what she calls the sister mayors groups as some kind of a advisory group? I'm
not going to say it's an advisory group, but it's a commonality amongst sisterhood. It's there. We all have a sisterhood, be it sorority sisters or close friends.
You're a Delta, right?
I'm a Delta, Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated honorary member. But, and there's a sisterhood, there's a kindred spirit there. But when you're in rarefied air and there are only a few others around the country, it's almost like that club, the President's Club, very small group. And they support each other once they're out of office for the most part, except for a couple. But for these Black women mayors to come together when they have a test, another will give a testimony to help them. I've been through that. This is what you need to do, or support one another, because all of them have been under fire at some point in time.
You've been under fire, especially in the Trump administration, where he made you, during the Trump years, a target. You wrote, in the world of journalism, I am an endurance candidate. One of the, I guess, most famous controversies involving you and Trump is that when you asked a question about the Congressional Black Caucus.
And Elijah Cummings at that time,
And Trump said, why don't you set up a meeting with them? That took off. Can you explain why you wanted to include that in the book, and what that story, repeating that story, how it instructs us as what you're trying to set forth?
Lynn, as a longstanding journalist at the White House, you understand we are there to write history. It's not for us to pull people together for President of the United States. You can't do that, because we're changing the story. We are in the story. We can't do that. It diminishes me as a person. He didn't call anyone else to do that. It diminishes what I do. And it was almost as if he was saying, and I'm not going to even say almost, it was if he was saying that I know them, they're my friends, I conspire with them or whatever. So, and I know every Black person.
Well, you certainly know the press secretary, Karine Jean-Pierre, who has the distinction of being the first Black female press secretary.
Known her for a while.
From your perspective, how is she doing?
Karine is growing in that position. You cannot measure her stand versus anyone else. She comes in with the support of the President of the United States. She comes in with a knowledge of what's understanding. She knows the people, but she's growing in this space, okay? And it's unfair to put her against Jen Psaki, who was at the White House with Barack Obama. She was at the State Department. It's unfair to put her up against anyone else, because everyone's experience is different. And then putting the women up against the men, their experience is different. Because in Washington, men speak to men. Men hang with men. So there is more of an understanding. They get in more, I believe. The women have to work harder. Jen Psaki was amazing. And Karine is moving into that space. She's new. So we've got to give her a moment. We got to give her a beat.
So you write, and again, the word moment keeps coming up. You wrote, this moment, you say, unlike other chapters in American history, Our presence is just not felt. Our voices are just not heard. But we are seen. We are powerful. We have arrived. Is that now a permanent situation, or do you think it's temporal?
Look, we thought laws were going to be permanent. Voting rights, nothing's permanent. You got to continue to fight for it. There's so much of a rollback that we're watching in Washington. I'm sure that would happen. It's important that we mark the moment so that everyone can have a seat at the table. How about that? I hope it's permanent. I hope they build from it. I'm not looking for an all Black woman world. I'm looking to be included in the world. That's all.
April Ryan got her start at a college radio station
Yes.
at Morgan State University, a historically Black college. You're from Baltimore.
Yes.
So that stint at the radio station got you started. And here's what I thought, because so many people think of Oprah Winfrey as making her mark in Chicago, but you write about how in 1976 you were watching Oprah, who was then at WJZ-TV in Baltimore.
WJZ, Channel 13.
And you say, and this is a quote, she ignited a fire in you. And then she left Baltimore, came to Chicago, where she started on her rocket trajectory. Rocket
trajectory is right. I just got chills when you said that. But think about this. Oprah is all I've ever known. It's like I equate it to children, Black children. And I'm going to give you an example. I equate it to Black children, particularly mine, who grew up knowing a president being Barack Obama. My daughters, when they met Bill Clinton, while President Obama was in office, said, "Oh, was he vice president?" I said, "What do you mean?" I said, "No, he was the president." "Well, Barack Obama is Black." I said, no. I had to help them understand that that was an anomaly in this country. That was a big shift. And for me, all I've ever known, I mean, I've seen reporters, I've seen Black reporters, Bernie Shaw, Carol Simpson, Oprah Winfrey. She was in my hometown. I watched her when she was in Baltimore, and then when she left. I was in high school when she left. And I'll never forget going to People Are Talking, the show that she used to co-host with Richard Scher. And she was in transition, so I missed her because I wanted to see her. But to watch her on national television, this woman who came from Baltimore, I was like, wow, it gave me pride, and it still gives me pride to see her trajectory, to see this force, this world mover and shaker who happens to be a Black woman billionaire. Oh. I never wanted what she had, because I always said her blessings were for her. And I said, my blessings will be whatever they are. But I've always been happy. And she has set an example for me and a lot of other women. I don't want to be her, but she lets me know the sky is the limit when others said no.
Well, a place where the sky wasn't the limit is how the impact of what you said are threats that came up in the Trump era. And let me write what you wrote, and then we could talk about it. You talk about how your hair fell out, my health, which deteriorated because of the stress, worry, and anxiety induced by actions and deliberate choices of the Trump administration, has rebounded. Donald Trump literally drove me to drink. Black women saved the world. Black women are saving the world. You better believe it. But we have paid an enormous price to do so. That's important to understand, too. I mean, that kind of goes deep in what you're sharing. Is this,
the cost?
So this book has a memoir as well as a bit of history here. So where are you at now in terms of
hair loss? Hair loss, I got a lot of my hair back. I've been going to my dermatologist, hair loss doctor. It really bothered me. Stress can really come out in so many different ways. It can impact your organs, but it impacted my hair and my skin. As I stood, my hair said, bye-bye. I'm leaving. I'm not going to stay with you. Right. But we've worked to get a large part of it back. When it comes to drinking, I'm not a drinker. But I'm going to tell you something.
I'm just writing.
I'm reading what you, I know. I'm not a drinker, but I used to, during this time I said, okay, I would have maybe a glass of lemonade with a little something in it every now and again, because it was a tough time.
Yeah.
It was a tough time. There were nights I couldn't sleep. I didn't know if someone was coming for me. You know,
This is all during the Trump
Yes,
years?
I had a Caesar Sayoc bomb before everyone got those bombs. Yeah. The FBI came looking for me because when I got that bomb and we realized what it was, I said, something's not right. And then when we saw it on TV, or we realized that someone sent me something, a device, and when we saw it on TV, my late boss was like, we were like, that's what we got in the mail. Wow. The same kind of tape taped over the address label and the way it was packaged and the actual gizmo in my home with my children. And that was during a summertime. They got theirs like in October. I got mine in the summertime.
So I don't even know, how old are your kids?
The oldest is 20. The youngest is now turning 15 in a couple of days. Wow. So yeah, and they're happy kids. And that's another thing. I never let them see an upset mom, because you don't want your kids feeling like they're not going to live or something's going to happen. But we moved and I was strategic, and that was a lot of worry and trying to keep them away from, they knew what was going on, but they never felt like they were in danger.
So when your family saw you being attacked by Trump in various times throughout the 4 years, how did they react to it?
My father, my late father, before he died, he kept saying, what is the FBI saying, April? Because the FBI came to the house and he would always ask, and my father was in and out of dementia, but he remembered that, what is the FBI saying? Because he was worried about me.
Wow. Yeah.
You know, it was a tough moment. I don't wish that on anyone. And that's why I said there was a commonality at essence. When you speak those words and you know that someone will act on your words and you know what you're doing, it's dangerous. And people wanted to support or whatever. And I internalized it. I kept working, but I internalized it. And another thing, I have a standing appointment every Tuesday morning at 8:15 with my therapist.
You also write, and this is kind of related, because everything's related in what you write, because you're writing about your life as in the history that is that is contemporaneous. But you write about something that's been around, and you say erasure is something all Black women know something about. Tell me about that.
I'm going to ask you a question.
Yeah.
Who is the top researcher for Moderna, for the Moderna vaccine?
It is, I don't remember her name, but I know it's a Black woman.
Erasure. Because we're not talking about it.
Hold on.
I know, but we're not talking about it. It's Dr. Kazmia Corbett.
Yes, but April, there's a lot of names I don't know.
I know, but
so
I'm saying,
I mean, just to be fair, that I didn't know that one.
I understand.
It's not the test. Okay.
No, it's not the test. But what I'm saying is, it's not the test.
Yes.
But in this moment, when we're still dealing with COVID, and we're being told to get these vaccines.
Yes.
And the sheroes and the heroes who are out there, from the doctors, and you don't know the names. That's bad.
Right.
You know, we can sit in an office and say something, and someone else will take that same idea, recraft it in a different way, and say it, and they get the credit for it. And that happens over and over again. I've had so many women come to me, Black women, who have identified with this very thing.
Well, you know, one of the things, going back to Mayor Lightfoot, and you came to Chicago to talk to her. You were in Washington?
No, we were in D.C. We were in D.C. I think that interview that you knew that I had. I knew
you were talking to her on one day.
That's what I'm saying. Nothing Chicago gets past you in Washington.
So I knew you were talking to her.
Yeah.
So you quote her in the book and saying, for Black women in particular, Lightfoot says, the cavalry is not coming to save you. Now, I think you put it in because I think you wanted to make a point larger than just Mayor Lightfoot. Can you explain?
The story I just told you about the bomb threats. What do you want us to do? You know? Sometimes when things happen, we're left out to dry. The problem is we are not part of that built-in infrastructure. We're grandfathered into a lot of things. We are not part of that in circle. You know, a lot of times we don't have people standing for us to make a win for us, or to make sure that we're going to win and make sure that all of us can still stand together. A lot of times when the chips fall, you're standing by yourself and you have to prove it by yourself.
So you address our profession, journalism, in your book, critically sometimes, or just you are a keen observer. So as a profession, have we made progress?
We have made progress, but there's so many negatives that are popping up here and there. And I'm going to tell you why. The internet, social media is so wonderful for us. But then you have these citizen journalists, then you have these bloggers that people believe are bringing you fact. And now so many of them are lumped in with us, and we get a bad rap for that. I believe that for us, the people who are working from fact-based news, we have to make sure we differentiate between fact and opinion, because we are now in a space where people are confused. And for my reporting, because I understand keenly, I try to make sure I have in there quotes from people, on the record quotes, because, you know, I hate the things sources tell us, or sources. I have to have quotes so you know that this is indeed something.
Right. So what do you think is the political future for Vice President Harris? Now, we're speaking at a time where no one knows for sure if President Biden is going to run again.
He told Al Sharpton he was going to run, according to Al Sharpton. Her political future, she'll be his running mate if he runs again, if he indeed officially files and runs again. But beyond that, I don't know. And I write about her rise because it is significant, and she did push him on matters of race. At that debate where she talked about busing. And I write a lot about that situation, because it took a lot for those two to come together, because he was very upset for a period of time that she did that, because he kept talking to me about their friendship, and he said, you know my heart, which was strange. And I was like, he's really hurt. I saw the humanity from this man who was trying to be at the White House. He was hurt. He knew me, and he just felt that he could say it. They got together. But the question is, does America want her to be president? And right now, that remains to be seen. I don't know.
And on that note, I'm going to end quoting you back something that you wrote. This book, writes April Ryan, this book is a love letter to Black women everywhere. I see you and I thank you. April Ryan, thank you for joining me at the table.
Thank you. Thank you, Lynn Sweet.